Tony D and Little Jones somewhere in the house, and this is a screenwriter's rant on the Book of Clarence Part 2. And I wanted to respond to some of the comments in the comment section. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Thank you for your comments. Most of you are very, very polite, and I appreciate the comments. I'm glad we can have a civil discussion about film and various issues. So, clarifying some of the things I said in the comments. First up, there's some confusion with a couple of the commenters. I kept referencing this show. It's called Black Jesus. It aired originally on Adult Swim. It's a very funny show. It was created by Aaron. I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. But he did a cartoon called The Boondocks. He did a comic strip, and then it was turned into a cartoon. This was one of the shows he produced after that, and it was very funny. I think it went 2 or 3 seasons. I know it went at least the second season. And Charlie Murphy was the foil in it. He was great. He was so funny. So it's a funny show, and it's a good kind of analogy to what I'm talking about with the Book of Clarence. Now, the director of the Book of Clarence also directed The Harder They Fall, which, in my view, had a similar problem as the Book of Clarence has. Now, initially for both movies, from a historical standpoint, you can talk about the race of the characters. That's an issue in a movie that's got a historical hook, but it's about whether or not the history is particularly accurate, right? There's certain aspects of history you can play fast and loose with in a Western. Obviously, there's lots of action in it. You want gunplay and bank robberies and train heist and all that cool stuff. So Nat Love was actually a pretty cool guy, and most of his adventures were exaggerated after the fact. So you don't have to stick to perfect history. However, the problem with The Harder They Fall was Nat Love's gang, seemed to kill people for very little reason. There was a lot of murder. If you go back into my old videos, you can see my initial trailer analysis and then the follow-up to that, because I got a similar reaction. Got a lot of hardcore fans for the director. For Clarence, the Book of Clarence, the problem is similar. Clarence, in this case, it's not that he kills people. He's a bit of a hustler, and he meets Jesus in 33 AD and decides, I'm going to be like him. And meaning that he's going to hustle like him. He sees, I think, what Jesus is doing as a bit of a hustle. And so he decides to do that with his friend. Now, it's not totally 100% clear, and that's a real problem with the trailer in general. Nothing's really clear in the trailer. It is cut, though, like a comedy. That may not be the fault of the director. Holy crap, this is getting a lot of downvotes. Oh, I just noticed that. Oh my God, look at the ratio. 1,434 downvotes to 149 likes. Oof. That's probably for religious people getting mad. Again, I made a joke like, if you're going to do blasphemy, do it all the way. That's probably religious people getting mad at you. But, hey, that comes with the territory if you're going to do a biblical story, and you're not going to try to be particularly accurate to the Bible or particularly accurate to history. You don't have to in a comedy. In a comedy, it's a free-for-all. As long as it's funny. Doesn't matter. And I contend that they cut this trailer like a comedy. Now, it may not be the director's fault. He may have handed in the movie. The studio may have looked at it and say, this is a biblical historical fiction or whatever it is. But we can't sell that. But we can sell a comedy to the audience we think that this would be aimed at. So they went into the editing room and said, cut this trailer like a comedy. Take the funniest scenes, no matter how mildly funny they are, jam them all together, and we'll put it out, and we'll try to market it as a comedy, get a bunch of people to see it at least the first week, and maybe the momentum will carry it through. That has nothing to do with the movie, the director, or anything else. It has everything to do with how they sell movies. And there are plenty of examples, and you can go back in history and you could probably remember yourself watching a trailer and saying, "Ooh, I want to see that movie," and then going into the movie and realizing it's kind of a different movie, right? Have you ever seen a trailer and it looks like it's full of action, and then you go to the movie and there's hardly any action in it at all? That's an example. If you've ever seen a trailer that looks really, really funny, and then you go into the movie and it's not really a comedy, it turns out it's mostly a drama. It's really a dramedy, they'd call it in Hollywood. Like it's a drama with a few comedic scenes in it. Again, that may be the studio saying, we can't really sell this as a serious drama. Let's try to sell it as a comedy because comedies are hot right now or whatever. That's happened to me multiple times. I've gone to see movies and I've just walked out of the theater saying, man, that was terrible because it wasn't the movie I expected. I expected to see this kind of movie, and instead it was a different kind of movie. It happens all the time in Hollywood. It makes them money in the short term, but in the long term, it's bad. I think it's a bad idea to do. Again, it may not be the director's fault. He may have handed in a perfectly good movie, but the marketers decided otherwise. The rumor for the movie Venom, if you've ever seen Venom, the first movie, was supposedly shot like a horror movie. And then the rumor is Sony or Marvel or both went back and decided, well, we can't sell this as a horror movie. It's too hard. We want it to be lighter, so they went back and changed the last half of the second act and the third act to make Venom more of a hero and to make it more fun and light so it wouldn't end so darkly. Which is a shame because I suspect from watching that movie, the first two acts are great, at least halfway through the second act, and then it starts to get a little odd. The tone seems to shift, and then it just, it kind of ends. It's a little bit confusing. I didn't see the second movie because of that. I think in the original cut of that movie, Venom is portrayed as a character that can only eat live creatures, because there's a scene where Tom Hardy jumps inside a lobster tank and eats a bunch of lobsters raw. And that's Venom forcing him to do that. So I think they backed off of that concept in order to try to soft pedal the movie as more of a heroic character for the MCU. A similar thing may have happened to the Book of Clarence. This may be a spot-on satire. Again, that's a kind of comedy, I'll remind you. It may be a spot-on drama. It may be like The Last Temptation of Christ, like more historical fiction or biblical fiction, you would call it. It doesn't follow the Bible stories, but it's pretty close and has something to say. But the studio decided, that's not really going to sell. We're going to cut it as a comedy. I would suggest that what probably happened, and this happens a lot too, is that the filmmaker got a little ahead of himself, assumed that the audience would immediately identify with the main character, possibly because he's just the main character, possibly because of his race, and just said, well, they'll identify with him. That's a really risky gamble. Yes, maybe some people would do that, but a lot of people wouldn't. It's cutting your audience, and you only need to show Clarence for a 10-second scene as a good guy. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. Clarence walking through the marketplace, and there's a little kid, and he's begging for food, and he's hungry, and there's a guy selling fruit, and he begs the guy, please just give me a pear or an apple or something, and the produce seller goes, get out of here, you beggar, and he throws a rock at him or something. He's really mean, and Clarence sees this, and while the guy's distracted, he steals a pear, and then he walks away from the produce guy, and the produce guy doesn't see, and then he pulls the kid aside and gives him the pear and says, here, kid, because he feels bad. That would make Clarence a hustler, a little bit roguish. He's doing something bad, but he's doing it for a good reason, and because of that, we like him. We like him, and we're behind him. He would do that for a starving little kid. Then you can get behind this character 100% and watch him through the whole way. Because then, from that point on, you'll assume he's a good guy. because it establishes his character as a guy who deep down can't hurt people, wants to help people. He's got a little sidekick in this movie. I don't know what his name is. This guy who pretends to be blind. Same thing. You could show how they meet, and maybe Clarence frees him. You know, maybe he's trapped in a cage and the Romans are going to throw him to the lions. And he's begging Clarence, please help me, they're going to kill me. Clarence risks his own life to free the guy. Maybe it messes up whatever scheme he's working on currently, and they both have to run, and he's mad. But in the end, you realize, yes, Clarence is a good guy. He can't let people die. He's a good man deep down. That's why you support him. If you watch a channel called The Fourth Age by RJ, he breaks down the various elements of a hero. And that's what you need in every movie. That's what the harder they fall was missing, and that's what this movie, I think, is missing. The races of the characters in the cast notwithstanding. Without that, you don't have anything. Why am I seeing this movie? If I don't like Clarence, if I don't know that he's a good guy, he could be an evil guy. This could be about a guy who is exactly the kind of guy Jesus said, hey, you know, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get in heaven. He could be that guy, right? Like Clarence gets super rich, and then in the end, he just doesn't help Jesus, and he ends up not going to heaven. I don't think it's that kind of downer of a movie. It could very well be that the filmmaker's just too caught up in his own creation to notice, and he just forgot to do the basics. That's happened a bunch of times too. You need to do the basics in filmmaking. Clarence has to be a good guy. You have to like him. If you don't like him, why watch the movie? And if you're just going to like characters because they happen to be the same race as you, it's not really you're not going to have a very good time at the movies. You might every once in a while. But in general, that's not the reason to follow a character. It doesn't matter what their race is. The only thing that matters is, are they good? Are they virtuous? Are they going to help people? Do we like them? I don't know whether or not to like or dislike Clarence, because they don't really give you any evidence in this trailer. Other than he's going to hustle. It's kind of funny, but it would be funnier, or at least more meaningful to me, if Clarence was a good guy. If Clarence was hustling to help his sick mom. If he was hustling to save his farm, or help somebody, save the temple, or whatever you can figure out in biblical times. Maybe he wants to free himself. If he can make enough money, he can buy his way out of slavery, or his friends, or his mother, or his love, or whomever. I mean, it's ancient times. These things happened. That's the problem with the trailer, in my view. To drill down even further. So you can argue the biblical stuff all you want. Kind of doesn't matter if it's a comedy. Kind of doesn't matter if it's biblical historical fiction anyway. What matters is, if you don't like the character, really nothing in the movie matters, because the movie doesn't matter. And you probably won't watch it, or if you do, you'll kind of just sit there and go, I guess that was a movie. You don't really want to do that. Anyhow, that's just my opinion. So relax. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Jones, somewhere in the house. Check me out at the Cherry Street Pier show, the Art and Artisan show, tomorrow at 4 to 9 in Philadelphia. And then at the Vintage Flea Market in Berwyn, PA. That's on Saturday from 9 to 4. Hope to see you there. We'll see you tomorrow.